Welcome back to the Go Have Good Sex podcast, the show where faith and pleasure finally stop fighting. I'm Angela, the Christian sexpert, sex coach, truth teller, and your new favorite bedtime devotional. If you're ready to go deeper, check out my resources for couples and individuals, from my free 15-minute coaching consults to spicy but faith-friendly resources like the Marriage Playdate, to my Patreon, where I teach you all the things your church aunties never told you about. And yeah, you know I've got it covered with merch, journals, bookmarks, and everything in between at thechristiansexpert.com. So whether you're here to learn, to heal, or to spice things up with scripture and sass, I'm your girl, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's get into today's episode, and remember, go have good sex. Welcome back to Go Have Good Sex. I'm your host, Angela, the Christian sexpert, and today we are actually talking about sex. If you are an OG follower of mine, you're going to remember my bedroom game series from TikTok. This is the series that made me go viral. One of the videos hit like 5 million views in just a few days. It was insane. And I haven't talked enough about play in the bedroom lately, so I figured we needed to talk about it on the podcast. Play is such an essential part of human connection, but it is such an essential part of your marriage and your bedroom. Sex is supposed to be the playground of your marriage, and some of you don't know how to play. This isn't about buying the craziest sex toy or buying 17 new pieces of lingerie. This is about using really accessible things that you might already have in your house, like some Crayola markers, or maybe picking up something super innocuous from Amazon and playing together. If sex in your marriage has become predictable, scheduled, boring, stale, efficient, or even worse, avoided, this is the series that you need. You don't always need a new toy or a new technique or something like that to reignite the spark in your bedroom. Sometimes you just need a simple evening of play. So let's get into it. So today I'm going to walk you through a few of my favorite bedroom games. These are the things that build connection, laughter, curiosity, and they probably are going to lead to some really good sex. The first game that I want to talk about is Simon Says. Yeah, the kind of Simon Says that you played in kindergarten, but we're going to make it spicy. One of you is going to be Simon, and the other one is going to be the doer. I need a better name for the other person who's not. One of you is going to be not Simon. Okay, and this is really great, especially if you are not comfortable voicing what you want in bed. If you are not comfortable giving direction, if you're not comfortable saying harder, faster, slower, a little to the left, right? This is a great game for you to start dipping your toes into that sort of expression. So the person who is Simon is going to get comfy in bed in whatever state of dress is comfortable for you. And then the asker is going to say, Simon, can I kiss your mouth? Simon, can I kiss your neck? And they cannot do anything that they have not asked permission to do. So for instance, if you're wearing a shirt, they're going to say, Simon, I would like to please put my hand under your shirt and caress your breasts. And then they're going to have to say, Simon, can I please take your shirt off? Simon, can I touch your nipples? Simon, can I put my mouth on your nipples? And if you want to make this even more creative, what you can do is you can actually establish consequences if the person does not ask for what they want to do and the game hasn't been called. So for instance, if They ask permission to touch your breasts, but they don't ask permission to put their mouth on it. You could have a 3-strike rule. So, that's strike 1. And you guys can decide what the consequences are going to be if they don't ask for permission. So maybe they need to make you orgasm twice before they get to orgasm at all. I don't know. What kind of consequences would you have for this game? So that's Simon Says. Really easy, super fun, and really can start helping you get a little more comfortable with vocalizing what you want or not in bed. The next one is the movie game. I absolutely love this one, especially if you are a couple who finds yourselves heading to the bedroom, just sort of immediately getting to business and skipping foreplay, making out, things like that. So I like to post this one usually around Christmas time because I love the example of using the movie Elf. And so you're going to, whatever movie you're watching, you're going to pick a keyword. So for the movie Elf, it's going to be Santa. And then every time someone says Santa in the movie, you're going to kiss. And the idea is to see how far you can make it into the movie before you totally abandon watching the movie. And you can kind of like set a goal for yourselves of, we have to make it at least 60 minutes into the movie before we can move this to the bedroom. When we think about when we were young and engaged, part of what made sex so appealing was that there were barriers between you and the actual act of sex, right? Like before you were married, there was no sex before marriage. If you guys made out, you were usually like fully clothed. So there was like physical barriers to just getting right down to penetration. And setting yourselves limits, like you have to make it this far into the movie before you're allowed to move things to the bedroom, but you also have to be kissing and making out every time the keyword comes up, is going to sort of recreate some of that barrier mentality of like what makes it really appealing. And so that can really add a wonderful layer of desire and excitement and novelty. The thing about all these bedroom games is they bring a layer of novelty to your sex life. And we know that neurons that fire together wire together. And we know that when your brain is encountering a new experience, a novel experience, it is firing neurons. And so when you add in the context of your spouse and a sexual situation, you're firing all these neurons together. And that's going to create some, first of all, like just amazing memories, amazing sexual memories. But also it's really going to help you bond with your spouse when you're adding that novelty. And please don't misunderstand me. Please don't think that I am saying that you guys should be constantly chasing novelty in your sex life, because that's not what I'm saying at all. Because remember, the other thing with these bedroom games is it has to be consensual. If you are not comfortable with any of these bedroom games, you should not be doing them. This has to be mutually desired, mutually pleasurable, and mutually consented to. And if you get the idea that you should be constantly chasing novelty, that's how we wind up with men addicted to really violent pornography, because they're constantly chasing the next high. So it isn't about constantly chasing novelty in your marriage. It's about, like I talked about in the episode with Nicole Lee, there's a tension that you need to hold between the same old and novelty. And these games are supposed to help you find that balance of tension without dipping too far into the novelty seeking area. So let's move into the next game. So the next game that I want to talk about does require a prop. If you are not watching the video, I am currently holding up a spinner board, kind of like what you would see on the Game of Life, where it's broken out into different sections. There's a spinner, and this is actually a sort of whiteboard material. And it has, this one particular one has 8 different sections. I think this one came from the Target dollar spot ages ago, but I will put a link for spinner boards in the show notes for you. But what you're going to do with this is you are going to write different sexual activities on the spinner board. So it could be things like making out for a minute. It could be manual stimulation for 1 minute. It could be nipple play for a minute. It could be using your mouth on certain areas for a minute. Whatever sort of activities and time constraints you would enjoy goes on the spinner board. And then you're just going to take turns spinning the spinner and seeing where it lands. And wherever it lands, that's what you are going to perform on your spouse for that minute. Usually spinner boards like that are fairly cheap, and you get to use it over and over again. And with something like that, you get to come up with different ideas to put on there every time. So maybe if you guys do have a collection of toys, you use the spinner board to decide, okay, we're going to put like 4 different toys on here, and we're going to spin, and we're going to see what toy we're going to use tonight on the spinner board. That's another way that you could use a spinner board for a bedroom game. The next game that we're going to talk about is the quiet game. Every parent's favorite game to make the kids play, but we're going to play it with a twist. This one is one of you is going to be the receiver, one of you is going to be the giver, and the goal of the receiver is to not make any noise. The goal of the giver is to try and make them make noise as soon as possible. But for the receiver, they need to try and not make any noise at all. Now, for some of you, like, you don't make any noise because you're repressed, because I don't mean that to be attacking. But I mean, like, some of you are so uncomfortable with sex that you are not vocalizing at all. And so this is sort of a way that you can challenge yourself a little bit of maybe the game isn't not make any noise, but the game is to practice making noise. So maybe the game is when they do something you really like, you play a little bit of like hot. Here, we'll make this a hybrid game. So maybe the game is you play a little bit of hot and cold. So if they start doing something that you really like, you start to make a little bit of noise, a little more noise. If they move on to something that you don't like as much, you go a little quieter. And you sort of play hot and cold with practicing making noise. Feedback is so important in a sexual relationship. You need to be confident in communicating to your spouse that you enjoy something. Because if you are in a healthy marriage, your spouse, their greatest desire should be bringing you more pleasure and vice versa. And so one of the ways that you communicate, I really like that, is by vocalizing during activities. And so some of these games can help you with that vocalizing during activities. And this next bedroom game is for the set who are much younger than I am, but Naked Twister. If you live in a body where you wouldn't break a leg playing Twister, everyone should play Naked Twister at some point in their life. You can make it into Strip Twister. Did you know that your smart home device actually likely has a skill for Twister? So you don't need someone to be flipping the spinner for you. You can actually tell your smart home device to call out, left hand blue, whatever, on the Twister board, or I'm sure there's an app for that. But your smart home device should be able to do that. And so you can play Strip Twister, where, you guys do the left hand blue, right hand red, whatever. And the first person that falls takes off an article of clothing, and you continue until you're done with things, until somebody's screaming from pleasure and not pain, not a broken ankle. Everybody, if you are young enough, do it now. Play Strip Twister now. And you can check like thrift stores and garage sales for old copies of Twister. But now that I'm saying that, I'm not sure that I would want to buy a used copy of Twister. Maybe just spend the $15 to buy one at Target. I don't know. And this last one is going to be, if you do own toys, spicy toys that you enjoy playing with, is you're going to play hide and seek, but with the toys. I do not recommend playing this one if you have kids at home. Do this when they're off at grandma's for the weekend. But one of you is going to take your toys, you're going to hide them all over the house, and then the seeker has to go find them, and you guys are going to use them together in the room that they are in. This is a really great way to move your activities out of the bed because, again, that adds a layer of novelty of moving things out of the bed. I do recommend with this one that the person who's hiding the toys makes a note of where all they hid the toys in the house, especially if you have kids in the house, because you don't want your kids coming home and pulling something out of the couch cushions and going, "Mommy, what's this?" Right? So maybe it is you guys have a waterproof vibe, so you hide that one in the bathroom and you take a shower together and use the vibe. Maybe you have something else that gets hidden in the couch cushions. What sort of toys could you hide in the kitchen and use on the kitchen table? I will suggest like maybe tossing a blanket or a cushion or something in rooms like the kitchen or something so that you have something comfy to get busy on. Just an idea. Okay. I would love to hear from y'all. What is your favorite idea in this podcast? This was certainly not all the bedroom games that I have ever published, but it is a solid place to get you started. And I do want to tell you that if you are interested in this sort of content of ideas and ways specifically to spice up your bedroom time, join my Patreon, because my Patreon is where I teach all the spicy things I can't teach on my regular socials. But I do videos all the time doing toy reviews, talking about different games that you can play, talking about different activities that you can do. It's all in my Patreon. And with my Patreon membership, you get early access to my podcasts. You get my podcast a whole week early. So if this episode has made you realize that your sex life is missing play, it's okay. It really is. Remember, our marriages go through ups and downs. And you're not always going to be in a season of play, but let this episode be an invitation to consciously move yourselves into a season of play. Like I said last week, you don't need a date night. You don't even need a weekend getaway. You just need curiosity. You need permission to have fun. You need a little bit of creativity. We've been on this kick of creativity, play, and fun, and we're going to keep on it because it is so essential to a healthy marriage. When play enters the equation, sex doesn't feel like obligation or pressure. It feels like possibility. Make sure that you guys send this episode to your spouse so you can pick out a bedroom game to play together tonight, so that you can go have good sex. That's it for today's episode. You've been blessed and probably slightly scandalized. Now go journal, go text your man, and most of all, don't keep this to yourself. Share it, review it, slide into my DMs. Then grab a journal, a game, or a coaching spot. And remember, Jesus didn't die for you to have boring sex. So go have good sex already.